and I will be posting this to YouTube after we're finished today. But today I want to kind of pick up where we left off last week, looking at basics of SOFTWorks and inserting plant material and specifying that material. Today I want to go a little bit deeper into setting up plant lists and some of the more advanced ways to insert plant material based on those plant lists. Does anybody have any questions before we get going?
Nope.
All right. So let's start with a blank drawing, and let's start a plant list from scratch, just so we get the basic fundamentals down of how that works. Plant lists live here in the database manager along with the rest of your plant lists. You can either click on this pull down menu, or if it's already up, you can just click above here on the little stack of cylinders. And so that brings up, the master database that we went over a little bit last week. But if I go 2 tabs over, planting list, this is where I have created lists based on plants that I prefer in certain circumstances, whether that's a project type like urban residential, whether that's a zone if you do work nationwide, or a particular client that you have repeat business from and they like a specific palette on their projects. So that's where these groups come into play. You can add as many groups as you want to. To add a new group, just click on the modify button, go to add plant list group, and then we can call it whatever we want to. We'll call this one New England plants. There's some other buttons here under the Modify tab. If you want to rename, delete, you can do that as well. These import, export, and the plant partner stuff, you can kind of ignore that for now. Plant partner is a UK service to help specify plants in the UK. We don't really have an equivalent in the US to help with that. It's kind of a master nationwide database for them, but we can skip over that for now. So now I have a new group. I have custom, I have New England plants, and I have urban residential. This already has a few lists in it I'll refer back to later. But starting from scratch here in New England plants, let's create a list within that group. So again, modify, and then go up to add plant list. And let's call this something unique. Let's see, we'll just call that Metro West Boston. And you can add a description if you like to help you remember what this list was. Now this field below is where we fill in information just like we're specifying a plant to insert it into the drawing. It's like, say we were inserting a tree, we would click on add specimen, we would click on specification, and we would fill out these forms based on the information we wanted to show. Same thing here, but instead of inserting the plant into the drawing, we are adding it to a list. So let me click on specification here. It's going to come up in a moment. Here we go. And let's just start with a tree. I'm not going to really stick to New England plants. I'm just going to be a little more efficient and just run through this functionality. Let's pick a river birch. Got the common name we like there. Abbreviation. This 3-letter one works for me. If you like to change that stuff, you can make those changes back in the database here under the species tab. But that works for me. Let's add a height as well. So nursery stock would probably be somewhere in that size. Caliper, let's say 2-inch, and let's say it's multi-stem. That would be multi-trunked probably, but that works for now. And then let's select a symbol that we would prefer that to be. We don't have to pick a symbol. We can use any symbol we'd like to if you like to mix it up drawing to drawing. But if you like to maintain consistency, say at the construction phase, you always want to use the same symbol for this type of plant. I'm going to go ahead and pick one here. Let's go to these more green, colorful ones. Yeah, this one works. Then I click OK. So as you can see, the fields here have been filled out. If I want to, I can add a price. I don't know what that costs, but let's pretend it's $85. And so we have this filled out, but it's not in the list yet. We still have to click this Add button, and that puts it down into the list. Let's quickly add a second tree, and then we'll look at how to revise those if we need to. So again, I go back to specification. Let's do a different tree. Let's go down to our oaks, and just do a red oak. Over here, northern red oak, that works. QN, that's fine. Let's say this one maybe is a little taller, and maybe we're getting we're paying a lot of money and getting a bigger tree. Let's do, I don't know, 3-inch, sure. And let's select a different symbol for that tree. Okay. And let's say this one is $125. Again, you don't have to fill out this price. You don't have to fill out any of this stuff. Only what's important to you is what needs to be here, and it can all be edited. So now I have 2 trees in this plant list. If I click OK, that goes back to the database manager. We can get that preview of what's in that list. So if I click on another list, I can see what's in there. That one's pretty short as well. This one here has a bit more to it. Got some shrubs and some conifers and some other stuff. But let's go back to New England plants and Metro West Boston, and let's modify this existing plant list. So I'll go back to Modify and View Edit Plant List. So here we are back where we were. And say we want to make a change to one of these plants. We didn't like the symbol we picked. We didn't like the caliper, or here's an error. This northern red oak. I have a ton of specifications jammed in this field that shouldn't be there. So it's saying it's 2-inch caliper, and it's saying it's 3-inch caliper, and it's multi-stemmed. So let's fix that. So I'll click on Quercus rubra and go back to specification. And excuse my laptop, it's a little bogged down running the webinar and everything all at once here. We can see in the specification field we have some extra data. So let's just manually delete out using our keyboard what we don't want. It's kind of important to note here, I don't think we went over this a lot last time about how this stuff works, the specification field. These are all some custom specifications you can add. So things like caliper, you just double click and it adds it to this field. Other things maybe like some of this is more UK based, but let's see, fabric bag size or other things you might want to edit. You can also add categories and add attributes here. So if you see a caliper or you want a caliper that's not listed, you can always go in and add that in the database manager here under species again. So let's click OK. We've updated the table here, but we need to apply that down to the list. So I click the Update button, and now we have simplified that Quercus rubra. The spec now just says 3-inch caliper, and that makes a bit more sense now. Any questions really about how how I created that plant list. I'll go into more detail about how we actually apply it here in a second, but any questions, just feel free to speak up, raise your hand, or type into the chat box.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Who do we have here?
Oh, hi. It's Martha.
Hi, Martha.
Would like you please to show us if we have an existing drawing with an existing plant list. Could you just quickly show us how we could drag that in?
Yeah. I'll go over that next. Actually,
Okay.
I have another drawing.
Never mind then.
Nope. All good. Great question. I have another drawing pulled up, and we'll import that. That's a great way to develop your plant lists. Is especially when you're getting started with this new version. Is to do a project kind of the manual way, where you're specifying every single thing, and then at the end of that project, you basically extract all those plants into a list. So let's do that now. So I'll click OK here, save all those settings for my new list, and click Finished. I'm going to jump over now to this drawing, and let's look at the schedule over here. And you can see there's probably a couple dozen plants I've specified. I have some trees, some shrubs, herbaceous, and conifers. I haven't added a ton of detail to these. I haven't added like caliper or specific symbols, but I definitely could and extract that all into a plant list. But the basic process is now that I have part of this designed, I like this palette. Over here next to, it's in the tools group, which is right there. There's a few buttons off to the side here that have some extra tools. The second one down, I'm going to pull that down, and I'm going to extract plant list from drawing. That brings up a dialog box where I can choose the group I want to put this list into. So I had urban residential, I had New England plants, or I can add a new group. Let's create a new group from scratch, and I'll call it we'll just call it apartment project. And then we can enter a specific name for that. We'll just use the project name number here. That works for me. Click OK. It's going to extract that, which may take a second if it's a big drawing. And then it's going to bring us back to the plant list manager where we were before. So now we have a new group. We have a new plant list within that with those 24 plants. If I want to go in at that point and make modifications, I do it just the same way. Modify, view, edit plant list. And then if I want to go in and change things, if we scroll over to the right, you can see, I've got, excuse me, I've got the Latin name, I've got common name and abbreviations, and really that's about it. Oh, and symbols. Symbols are specified by plant here. So let's just look at the honey locust and see what that looks like. So I click on specification again. And we can see species, common name, abbreviation. Here's the symbol. If we want to add other fields, like maybe it's a specific pot size, or you want to specify bag and burlap here, or let's just tie a height to that. Click OK, and then update that plant. Now if we look at the honey locust again, where is it? There we go. Now we have that height data tied in for the next time we insert it. That's already tied to it. Let's see, looks like I have another question here. What about if you have more than one size for a particular plant species? in that case, there's a couple options. Let's go back to View Edit Plant List. And say we want to have a couple different sizes of this plant. So I highlight the one that's already there. And then I go to Specification. And then I'm going to make a change to the height, the nursery stock height here, and say it's a smaller 10 to 12 foot. Click OK. And then instead of hitting Update, which would update the one I have highlighted, I'm going to click Add, which will add a second one here at the bottom. So click OK. That'll resort once we exit and go back in. So you see now that I have two different Gleditzias, and when I need to specify, now if I have this plant list active, I can choose between what size I want to specify. And that can be done with any specification item that we have.
You could add an additional symbol too?
Yeah, so if we wanted to have, say, a different symbol for that different size, let's go back to Edit. Let's say that this one we want to have a different different symbol. So back to Specification, and let's grab that, select symbol, and let's say we want, let's get something really different, so more of an illustrative symbol. So you could also use this, say, for, palette that you're using for an illustrative phase versus a palette you're using for a construction phase. Could also be a way to break up these plant lists into different categories. So I click OK. I click Update. And now let's scroll over to the right, and we have, you see, different symbol names for those two. So it's really any spec, including symbols, you can modify. This is probably a good point now to look at how to actually apply these plant lists. You take the time to build this thing out either from scratch, or you took the time to do a project the manual way, and now you want to kind of capitalize on this efficiency. Let's put in some more plant material. I'm going to go back to my blank drawing just so it runs a bit faster, and we can not be distracted by the other elements there. So the first way to insert plant material is you starting off the same way you did when you're starting from scratch. We went to Specimen and Add. We go and say, okay, so again, we're doing 25 foot, so a larger shade tree. We go to Specification, like we always do. But instead of going to, say, the Trees tab, we go to the Plant List tab. We find the list we want to use for this project, and we can pick from that list and automatically have all of the fields fill out here. So we do the manual insert. We've already got the symbol we like selected. I click OK. I can place a label if I like. Let's go from the insertion point there. Let's move that to a better spot. There we go. So we didn't have to go through and pick all those things again. So that's a bit of an efficiency. It's not maybe the hugest gain, but what it does, it gives you that uniformity. So we know that in every project we're using the same symbol. We're using a spec that's available at the nurseries we use. The other way to leverage the plant list is using the Quick Add tool. So you see all of these buttons that have lightning bolts on them. Quick Specify, the Quick Add buttons. These are all kind of come together in a different workflow. So let's use Quick Add. So Quick Add is a pared down version of the Add button. We don't pick specifications here. We only pick the size of the symbol we want to insert. And we really don't care, what symbol that is. I'm just going to use a circle and, put some circles here to represent that tree. Then maybe I want to put in some, let's do some shrubs. Here, let me hit OK to complete the command. Let's go back in and put in some shrubs now. Again, I'm going to use circles and just put a grouping of shrubs there. Great. And now let's quick add an area as well. So maybe we have some perennials underneath these. So I'm just going to do a quick boundary using our drawing tools that are built in. And then I'm going to hit CL to close that shape. No, let's leave that there. Okay. So now we have some basic keyscape objects that aren't really tied to any plant in particular. They're just symbols, kind of conceptual stage. Once I get a layout I like and makes sense, then I can come in and start tying the details of that plant list to these plant elements. And that's this quick specify tool. So I'm going to click on that. At the top here, I'm going to go to my apartment project, choose my list that I just extracted from the other drawing, pick the label style that I want to use, which is this 20 scale one I've developed. And then I can go, okay, let's look at planting area, or sorry, specimens first. Let's call these honey locust. Let's say we can put a price in if we want to. If not, we can do that later. Hit select, grab that tree, draw a label from, let's say, the center of this circle. Oh, that's fine. Click OK. Now let's go and define what these shrubs are. Okay. And let's go to our plant areas, and we'll say that's this plant. Great. I go back and finish. So now very quickly I have attached specifications to these objects without going through a painstaking process of picking each one. If I double click on one of these or go to like modify, let's modify this plant area. So it looks like I got the density a bit wrong. So let's go and say that these are planted 2 feet on center or 3 feet on center. It's kind of a big area, but let's make that adjustment there. Let's look at this. If we want to make a change, we could, but it automatically inherited all those specifications we had in that plant list. So that really speeds things up. And let's pick a nice shrub symbol for that one. And we could do the same thing for the honey locust if we wanted to. All right. And let's just pick that same symbol, that's fine. The specification, okay, great. So that's the two ways to leverage these plant lists. One is just getting uniformity across your projects, and two is to quickly be able to specify plants that you insert into your drawing, and add some consistency to the symbols as well. The other thing that's of value here is I talked about this extract plant list from drawing button. The button above that is export drawing schedule. So if you want to, well, first I have to have a schedule, so let's put a schedule in. Okay. Now let's export this. And this is for, say, we want to do some additional analysis in Excel. Let's go export drawing schedule. Select the schedule. Do you want to filter out the number column? Sometimes you do if you just want the plant list itself. Let's hit yes. Do you want to merge data fields to a single column? No. And now we can save a CSV file that can then be opened in Excel for additional cost estimation, or if you want to share that with another consultant or for some other reason. The other way that this works, though, is we can bring in Excel files. So if you've ever worked with counting your plants in Excel or having a master database there, let's go back into the database manager and let's go to planting list. Let's pick one of our categories we've already used. So let's say this New England plants. I want to add a new plant list. I'm going to import that. There's a lot of file types here you can choose from. So, the Keyscape ones are the ones that start with a K. Plant partner, that stuff you can ignore. But Excel files you can bring in, which is important. Let me go find an Excel file here in my library. So I believe this one has some good data in it from a previous project. So we see here we have on the right kind of a snapshot of what that Excel file looks like. So we have number of trees in that project. We have abbreviation, species, and common names. We could have other stuff as well, like girth or height and other specs. What we need to do is line up our schedule, our database in Keyscape with this external file. So we see the rows along the top. We have, row 1 is called plant schedule, row 2 is called F2, F3. So plant schedule, this column really is just quantities, and we don't care about quantities when we're creating a new plant list, so we can ignore that. F2 is our abbreviations, so we need to tell the program that F2 is abbreviations. F3 is Latin names, so we need to tell that F3 is name. F4 is common name, so we open up that and tell it this is common name. The other thing we need to do is tell it what rows to import. We don't have to import this entire list at once. We can just pick out what we really care about. And we do that by selecting with our mouse. If you want multiples, hold down Control on your keyboard and you can select multiple items. So let's just pick those few. I don't want the headers here, that stuff. We would need to filter that out, so I'm only picking the ones I really care about. To make this simple, let's just stick with these 3 trees for now. Okay. Now there's a few trees here that it doesn't know, necessarily what type of plant that is, because that piece of information wasn't present in the spreadsheet. So now it's saying, okay, the Platanus and the Gladitsia, what are these actually? So I can tell it what category to place them in. These are trees. Apply that to those selected rows. Now the program knows that those 2 are trees. I click OK. And now we've imported a plant list from an Excel drawing. And it can be used just like in the other plant list that we may have created from scratch or that we imported from an existing project. Another question here, can we import an old LandCAD plant schedule or Excel file? So old LandCAD plant schedules, I don't believe we can import those directly. I don't remember off the top of my head if LandCAD has an export to Excel function. I think it might, or you might be able to export to, say, a CSV format. I'll have to look into that and get back with you guys on what that interoperability is. If you can get it into an Excel format, we can definitely bring it in some form or another. Merging plant lists, another good question. So what you can do in that case would be to, say we had these 2 plant lists. There's only a couple plants in both of them, and some of them, they have some overlap. What I could do is export both of them to an Excel format, put them together in Excel, and then bring them back in as one. So you do that manipulation that you need to in Excel or another spreadsheet tool, and then do another import or bring them back together. What we're really doing here is we're taking spreadsheet data and putting it into a database, so there's a bit of a translation going on there. So we can't directly just merge within the program, but within a program like Excel, you can merge plant lists together. Any other questions regarding plant lists, quick specify, quick add, symbols, anything there? Let's finish up today here then by kind of going over a few things that we touched on last week, but we didn't get really deep into, and I think are really important when you're trying to get some efficiency, and that's one of them, Specification Manager, the ability to make global changes to these plants. So say you did want to transition from a simple circle symbol to a more interesting or more illustrative symbol. That's what Specification Manager is for. Or if you want to change a height or change an abbreviation or add data like caliper. Again, this interface should look very familiar. It's the same interface that we have. Let's do a 3D tree for the fun of it. That you have on the add specimen or add when you're adding to a plant list. Click OK. Apply that change to the drawing, and then move on to the next item you want to modify. And let's say it's that planting area we've put in, and we want to change the density. Say instead of 2 foot on center, we want to increase that to 1 foot on center. Apply to drawing, click OK, and then those 2 changes have now gone into effect across the drawing. We now have a 3D tree If we wanted to go down that path of starting a 3D rendering, we could begin to frame that out. Let me go back to top view. The other thing that I did on this drawing to kind of speed up my workflow, I touched on this last week, but it was to set some defaults in the core menu. So I'll go back to drawing setup in the core menu. And of course I have my drawing unit set to feet. That's what I prefer. If you're working on an architect's plan, you might be in inches. But then under SOFWORK style, I've created a couple styles that I like. I like to use it on a lot of demonstrations, so they load automatically. This 20 scale drawing, or 20 scale specification style, and then this plant schedule. These are things I had created a long time ago. If I go back to SOFWORKS, go back to modify styles, we can see the settings that I've used to create this 20 scale label. I have number of plants, I have my specification, I have my abbreviation. It's really only pulling from these two right now because I don't have this other stuff in my drawing. I've set a text style that has that architectural look to it that I prefer. I've selected a height. All that good stuff I got just how I liked. And then I did an export. And I saved it in this default location, this KIS file. They're located here once you save them. And once I had it the way I liked it, then I went back to core, said drawing setup, SOFWORK style, and I went out and hunted and found that KIS file that I created. So, okay, import. And let's bring in a different one. We'll bring in the 10 scale one as well. Great, so that's in my drawing now. I can set that to a default. And then when I save these defaults out to, say, a drawing setup file, I can have those the next time I load a new drawing, or if I have a specific scale I need to work at, I can quickly load up a set of specs and schedules that all make sense to me for that project type or that scale. And that's another great way to get some efficiency out of the product. One more thing to finish up today, I think, would be find objects. Again, it kind of has to do with managing plant data within the drawing. Let's go back to this big plan that has a lot of plants in it. Some things are specified, some aren't. So let's go to find objects. At the bottom it asks me to select a region, or I can hit enter for all. I'll just hit enter for all. Now I have some categories here at the top. These are kind of more error checking. So I have 209 items without specification, or sorry, with specification but no label, 78 without spec, and 129 without an assigned symbol. So, this is a work in progress. I'm still specifying all these trees and shrubs. So this can help me track down things I may have missed. Down here are all of the species I have specified somewhere in the drawing. Looks like I only have one buxus, boxwood, somewhere in the drawing. And it probably doesn't make sense to just specify one of something like this. So let's go find that. Click the find button. And it zoomed in to where I had that item. Okay, it looks like I have a few of them spec'd in this grouping, so maybe it does make sense to leave this, but I would have had to hunt around for quite some time to find that in the drawing. I've zoomed right to it. If I want to modify it, I can just do that here. And let's change that to something else. Bring it in line with the rest of the drawing. So I click on specification. That's going to load up. Let's go to my plant list and pick something different. Here it's saying, hey, this plant had one symbol, this new one has a different symbol. Which one do you want to use? Let's use the new one. So I click on specification, click OK. I've made that change, and now I can return to the Find dialog box. So this is really handy when you get into these bigger drawings, especially on commercial projects. Again, let's start looking at where I may have missed some specifications. Let's go to items without specification. There's 78 of them, so obviously I still have a lot of work to do here. But I can go and scroll through all of those objects one by one and fix where I've missed things. That way what you're depicting in plan view is not out of alignment with what you're showing on your schedule. So even though there's a plant symbol here, if I click on modify object, we can see there's no data filled out. That's because I used that quick specify tool just to get it on the ground conceptually. And then I come back at a later point when I kind of have a better handle on what's available in the marketplace for plant material and can go through and tag these things with items from my plant list. So let's go ahead and add a spec to this one, and then we'll finish up for the day. So you don't have a lot of ground covers in here. That's all right. We'll just pick that again. And since this item's never been specified before, it's saying, hey, do you want to place a label? So I can do that at this point, or I can come back and place that later. So let's return, finish, and now we're just back to our drawing. We can continue working like normal. And so that's the Find Objects tool up here, which I think is pretty important. Any other questions before we close out today? If not, feel free to shoot me a note, nate@keysoftSolutions.com. We'll be on next week again with a different webinar. Let me just pull up the schedule here. I think it is a different topic. We're getting away from plants next week, and I believe it's paving and hardscape. Let me just pull up the schedule. Yeah, paving and hardscape will be next week. We'll look at how I created objects like this paving pattern here, the coping around the pool, and the brick edging I have on this pool deck as well. Thanks everybody for logging in today. I'll have this up on YouTube for anybody who missed, and if anybody wants to review, and we'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Nate.
You're welcome.
Thanks.